Hey everybody, Jeremy here from Pinky and the Brain Show. Just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everybody who's tuned into the show so far. We really do appreciate it. If you haven't already, go search it up on Facebook, like the page. We're on iTunes. If you could subscribe and leave a rating, that would be awesome. It helps us to grow the show, and if you're liking the show at all, please share it with a friend. That's all we will ever ask of you. Now, before we get started talking Chiefs, Super Bowl, and much more, we did have a little bit of a weird recording issue where our guests did not get recorded in stereo, only on one channel. Not sure what the hell happened there, but it is what it is. Enjoy.
Live from Studio 3B, it's the Pinky and the Brain Show.
The Pinky and the Brain, yeah, Pinky and the Brain. They started up a podcast so Jeremy can complain. They talk about their life, news, sports, and Twitter fights. Brandon's kinky, they're Pinky and the Brain, 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 brain. No!
Without she, I feel incomplete mentally. She's been sent to me right there since 9-6. Worst nightmare to side chick. Some things are just meant to be. This it for me. Give my daughters a kiss for me. Y'all call this fame, I call this shit alcoholistic infamy. Targeting my kids and babies through population and gun control. Shit make me want to make 100 more. Make a bigot racist uncomfortable.
What in the world is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pinky and the Brain. Today we are joined by what I can say now is our very first friend of the show. Farzin, how are you doing? This is your second time on the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I appreciate having me back. It's an honor to be back. I'm doing pretty well. Busy as usual, but of course the Chiefs got a Super Bowl this week.
So, the reason you're on is incredible, and it's because of the Chiefs. So, yeah. You know what's crazy is, I was sitting here thinking about this. I am so angry at my kids. And the reason I am is because I waited my entire life for the Royals and the Chiefs to be good. And my daughter is only 5 and she's already seen a World Series and now the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl. But good for her.
Well, damn, man. I mean, kids don't know the pain and the agony.
That's right.
These days. They just don't.
I mean, I see you always, you're always going to Vegas, what does this mean for you? Because I know what it means to me. It's just so incredible.
I guess when you look at what this team has gone through over the years, maybe in the moment you may not feel that way, but sometimes the pain and the agony will be worth it. This team has gone through a lot of hell. A lot of great moments, too. A lot of them. I mean, just off the top of my head, some special moments like the Dante Hall crazy punt return touchdown, the Chiefs beating an unbeaten Packers team on 6 days when they changed coaches and quarterbacks. And then there have been a lot of bad moments as well, both on and off the field with this franchise. And at the end of the day, man, every team will have their glory. They just will. And right now the Chiefs are kind of going through that. It seemed kind of hard to believe at first. And I've been very critical of Andy Reid. And, I kind of question, would this even happen with this Chiefs team? Was last year the closest we would get to a championship with the offside call and all? But no, sometimes you just got to be a bit patient as hard as that can be. But yeah, I mean, pat on the back to all the Chiefs fans who have endured all these years of just all the heartbreak. Now we're kind of laughing back at all those moments.
You're damn right about that. And what's so weird is the Chiefs kingdom, all right, the Chiefs fans, everybody, we were all a beaten down, franchise. But what's so crazy about Pat Mahomes is he's flipped that. Like I've never been more confident in my life. And it's all because of him. He flipped this entire script for us.
Yeah. I mean, when we drafted him, I'll be honest that I don't know what your state of mind was. I was on the whole Deshaun Watson train.
Me too. Actually, me too.
And I won't really go deep into this because this is probably a topic for another time, but a lot of people have debated, would Deshaun Watson be a better quarterback if he was playing for Andy Reid versus Mahomes and Bill O'Brien? I mean, maybe who knows? We never know. We can always debate that hypothetical, but we never know. At the end of the day, the Chiefs knew what they were doing. They probably would still have success with Watson, I think, but they felt better with Mahomes. They traded up, 13 spots to get him. Yep. And not to mention, he was not even the first quarterback taken. I was actually having a conversation about that with my brother earlier today. The fact that there was another quarterback taken before Mahomes. And it kind of reminds me of Alex Smith. He was taken number 1 overall. Rodgers was taken after him. So, you'll hear kind of a similar comparison with Trubisky and Mahomes for probably a while now. It kind of going back to what we were saying about the pain and agony and disappointment, there are many times where the Chiefs have, let a great player slip by in the draft. Now, there are 10 teams, including the Bills, who were supposed to pick 10th that year. 10 teams let Mahomes slip by. So now it's kind of our turn to say, well, we got this player and 10 other teams passed up on him. So, yeah, it's just crazy just how it's all unfolded and what he's been able to do. I don't know about you, but I remember last year in week 2 when he had that 6 touchdown performance, and then 2 days later he's at the University of Kansas Hospital, doing his charitable event as most players do on Tuesdays, since that's the off day in the NFL. People went crazy for him in that hospital. Patients, workers, media, everyone. That's when I knew, all right, this is about to change. Like, we got our superstar quarterback finally.
Yeah, it's incredible because, the last time we really had the chance, like what you're saying, is, by not choosing the right quarterback. In 1983, I was only 3 years old. Todd Blackledge, right? And we passed on Marino, right? That was one of the greatest quarterback draft classes of all time. John Elway was in that class. Dan Marino, I believe Jim Kelly. But yeah, so you're absolutely right, where it just never seemed to line up just right for us. It did this particular time, and man, it's just so incredible. It's so incredible.
Well, can I just add something?
Sure.
Think of this too, because look at who the Chiefs. A lot of people have been talking about why are the Chiefs here, and they didn't go and sign a big name free agent to help bolster this team. They have built this team through the draft. Tyreek Hill was taken in the 5th round, and granted, he had an incident. I know that's under question, but for now, we have to consider the incident, what was reported and all. And he slipped to the 5th round. Travis Kelce slipped to the 3rd round. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, other players.
Well, like this last draft, for instance, let's talk about that. The last draft, it just seemed like everything just fell perfectly. Getting, Hardman, like for instance, like later on in the draft. What was that? Like a 2nd round, I believe.
Second round.
So this Juan Thornhill, for instance, like this last draft class was just incredible.
Yeah, and I'm sure, the media loves doing the redo mock draft, and people enjoy reading those, as do I. And in a couple of years, I think you're going to see these redo mock drafts where you're going to see McCole Hardman and Juan Thornhill will be taken in the 1st round. You remember the year we got Chris Jones and Tyreek Hill?
Yep.
And the same I mentioned Tyreek Hill already. Chris Jones was actually a 2nd round pick, and I remember NFL.com did a redo mock draft. Both players were taken in the top 10.
Right.
And that was the year the Chiefs didn't have a 1st round pick. So you got to give a lot of credit to John Dorsey and Brett Veach. And I know Dorsey's no longer on the team, but he still had a hand in these picks. And that's a big reason why the Chiefs are here. Absolutely.
No doubt about that. So let's talk about, what are you doing in preparation for this week? Like, this is just, I just don't even know what to think. It's still kind of surreal. I don't even know if it's fully sunk in yet, but what are your plans? What are you doing? You watching the game with friends, family? What do you got going?
My family and I mean, we've always watched the games together, so I'll definitely be with them. I remember when I was in college, I went to KU, so not too far from where I live, but I would actually come home at least for sure on Sundays to watch Chiefs games together. So they're definitely watching this one with the family. I remember last year someone was inviting me to the AFC Championship game, and while I appreciated the offer, I'm like, no way I'm watching this one without my family.
Right.
There's no way. Plus, I'm a wimp, and I'm not going to be in the cold for so many hours. I'm just not. But no, we're definitely watching together. I agree with you, though. The whole thing, though, of it starts sinking in. I don't know if you watch any of the Super Bowl media availability on Monday night, which is a massive spectacle. I believe over 6,000 credentialed reporters were there. I remember watching this every year wondering, when is my team going to be a part of this?
Yep.
Because that Super Bowl media night has truly become, it's not just the game anymore. It's not just the commercials. It's not just the halftime show. Like, Super Bowl week is a big deal. And all the radio stations that send in a crew for Radio Row, I mean, I've been enjoying listening to that. I enjoyed Monday night during my workout listening to the interviews on, I have Sirius XM on my phone, so I was listening to that, and they're interviewing almost everyone, as many players as they can during the, I don't remember how many minutes it was, like a 90-minute window where you were allowed to talk to all these players. It's just so cool now to see that the Chiefs are finally a part of this. I saw someone took a photo of Jimmy Garoppolo and Patrick Mahomes sitting side by side, and then they have the Super Bowl trophy on the side as well. It's like, that's when I knew it was for real. The Super Bowl patches on the jerseys that came out last week, that's when I knew it was real. So it's really cool to see that, now my team, the Chiefs, your team, of course, too, a lot of people listening probably as well, their team is now a part of this big spectacle, which 50 years ago, the last time they were there, I mean, there was no such thing as Media Week or Super Bowl week, it was just the game itself.
Yep, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I remember I'm a big fan of Jim Rome, so I've always really enjoyed his like what you're saying, Radio Row week. It's an incredible thing, and I always listen to it thinking, what about if the Chiefs get to go? And now here we are.
Yeah. Yep.
So
no, it's pretty cool. I mean, and you look at a lot of the media outlets too. It's like, I think it's pretty cool because a lot of celebrities are there. A lot of former NFL players are there. A lot of famous journalists are there. So I remember I was working at 610 Radio. I can't remember what Super Bowl. It was right after the Giants beat the Royals in the World Series. So whoever was in the Super Bowl in 2015, I think it was Patriots Seahawks.
Yep.
The one where they threw an interception at the 1 yard line. And I remember, I don't know if you ever listened to Danny Parkin's radio show before he left 610 to go back to his hometown in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was going over on his radio show. It was 6 o'clock, but he really wanted to interview Joe Buck just to get his thoughts on like the whole, criticism that he was pulling for the Giants and all, which was pretty cool. And as soon as, he came on the air, texters were texting in saying, take him off. But, I mean, that's what Super Bowl Media Week is about. Talking to all these celebrities, talking to all these big name figures that are out there that make themselves available for Radio Row. It's such a fun moment, man. It really is.
Yeah, so we're all these greats, right? We get to go hear all of their thoughts. Like, I've seen people throwing together videos of all the Chiefs greats, right? Saying about what this means. It's just an incredibly surreal experience. And I'm just going to keep soaking it up.
Yeah, it really is cool. And I love some of the video tributes where a lot of the former players were saying, hey, bring in a lot of the celebrity fans like Tech9, Rob Riggle, Eric Stonestreet, Paul Rudd. I mean, they're all just pumping up the players saying, hey, bring it home, good luck and all that stuff. So it is really cool just seeing, past and present Chiefs players just kind of coming together, the celebrity fans. And we've, of course, got a lot of great, I know the Big Slick guys, a lot of people love what they do. And there are a lot of local Chiefs fans, or celebrities, I should say, that aren't a part of Big Slick, but, everyone still loves them. So, it is really cool just to see, Brad Pitt, receiving a Chiefs hat at the SAG Awards and all that. So it's really cool to see.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the game. How about that?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think the 49ers, obviously they have a great defense. What do you think the most unique challenge is? Andy Reid, we know what he does when he's given extra time to prepare. His record after being able to prepare is insane. What do you think the biggest challenge is going to be?
Are you asking to be a challenge for the Chiefs or for the 49ers?
Yes, for the Chiefs.
Well, I think, this offensive line has played really two good postseason games, I should say, against the Texans and against the Titans. But this is a 49ers defensive line, probably the best defensive line that you'll face for a long time, unless you meet them again in the Super Bowl next year. There's talent all around, and their rookie draft picks, Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, D Ford, who we're familiar with. I know he's more remembered for that one crucial moment, but you can't let that overshadow what he's capable of. Eric Armstead, even there's so many great players on that defensive line. But Mahomes, oddly enough, he thrives when he's under pressure. And I think when you look at some of the elite quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, the Chiefs have defeated those quarterbacks, or at least have been able to make it close against those quarterbacks because of some of the great pass rushers they've had in the past, like a Jared Allen or a Tamba Hali. But a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes doesn't let an elite pass rusher really get to him. Keep in mind, the Chiefs have the worst defeat they've had under Mahomes is by 7 points. So this team has always been competitive. And it kind of makes me wonder, this defensive line is definitely a different animal than what the Chiefs have gone up against since Mahomes has been here. So I'm kind of curious how that's going to go. Richard Sherman, obviously a phenomenal defensive back. That's just an obvious statement there. But even then, I don't know if this secondary, a really good secondary that the 49ers have, not as good as the defensive line, but regardless, can this secondary keep up with Kansas City's offense? I really hope McCole Hardman gets more snaps on offense. I've been kind of questioning why he hasn't, but man, if you have McCole Hardman on the left, Tyreek Hill on the right, Sammy Watkins, on one side, Travis Kelce on another side, Damian Williams in the backfield, who's been having a phenomenal postseason. Who's to say that this team can't stop them? The only way you do stop them is if that defensive line can quickly beat our offensive line. So I'm expecting a lot of short passes, kind of like the Alex Smith dink and dunk. I know that's not what a lot of people would like to see, but given this defensive line and how good they are, I think you'll see maybe a couple deep shots, but not as many as people would like. I think you're going to see a lot of short-range to medium-route passes, if that makes sense.
Well,
on the offensive side.
That's kind of interesting because you brought up, Richard Sherman. I believe I saw something about him where he hasn't given up. It was something silly like a touchdown over 10 or 20 yards. It was something crazy when I saw it, and I just thought to myself, well, can Tyreek go deep on him? Because I think, yes, he absolutely can, but I think you're absolutely right about I don't think we're going to see those big, long passes that we've been accustomed to seeing. I think you're right. I believe the right strategy is to sort of, I hate to say what you're saying, like Alex Smith, maybe dink and dunk a little bit, but maybe that's the best strategy for this one.
Yeah, and, let's not rule out the fact that Mahomes is going to run the football himself. We've seen him kind of turn it on. And I know we're used to seeing Mahomes just slide and avoid these hits, but last week, man, not the case. Now, maybe it has to do with the fact that they were trailing up until that touchdown run he had. If the Chiefs are up, by 2 possessions, does Mahomes put in that extra effort to battle against these defenders? Probably not. Ideally, more times than not, you'd rather just see him run out of bounds or slide. But he won't. I wouldn't call him a running quarterback, but he's kind of on that borderline. I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but I think he's kind of on that borderline of becoming a running quarterback because he's definitely proven that he's not shy to turn on the wheels when he needs to.
I think what he's learned is via his crazy playmaking abilities, I think what he's starting to realize is if he keeps a play alive long enough, that now defenses know they have to cover the receivers, and that's giving him that space. And I think he's figuring out that, well, if I just, keep them engaged long enough, open up that space, and then, he's got it at that point, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's the idea. The thing, and we talked about this all last year. Now, it was kind of under question because of Tyreek Hill's child abuse allegations, but once his suspension was over, or his team-imposed suspension, I should be clear, when he came back, we all started resuming the conversation of, hey, you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Sammy Watkins-Hardman. Someone's got to get open with all that speed. It's just going to be too much for that 49ers secondary to keep up with.
I couldn't agree more. So speaking of Mahomes and his running ability and, like you said, maybe stretching out these plays, curious what your thoughts about Florio's comments.
Yeah, he started off by saying, I'm not advocating for an injury, but
let me line out how they should.
Yeah. It's almost like, those people who are saying, I'm not trying to be racist, but, that kind of thing. Look, he knows what he said. And I don't know if you saw, his follow-up article, which is basically just trying to defend everything he said. And then on Monday, he needs a little bit of backup here. So who's next to him is Chris Sims, who, Jesus Christ, I don't even know who the hell Chris Sims is. Just some guy from Bleacher Report. That's all I can tell you about him, because I would answer the phone when he would call in for a hit on 610. He's over there saying, look, said something about how, if Mahomes is on the sidelines, what happens? A lot of times defenders, they kind of lay off because they assume quarterbacks are going to run out, but then Mahomes might use that as a way to trick players, which, okay.
That's
actually
valid.
A fair comment there. That is actually, understandable. The way he said it the first time, it's like you're advocating for an injury. Let me be clear. You're advocating for an illegal hit.
Correct.
That's how it came off. And then he sugarcoats it and trolls people and mocks people for criticizing him. Come on. He knows what he said.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I don't know if you ever watch Speak for Yourself. Jason Whitlock lit into him pretty good. I'm not a fan of what Florio said at all. And let's be real. Mahomes is the biggest star that the NFL has right now. So advocating for something like that is really, it's borderline irresponsible.
Yeah, and I saw Dan Israel, who is the executive producer for the Chiefs Radio Network, and you can also he also talks on air sometimes as well. He's also a co-host. He said the exact same thing, that it's irresponsible. I don't know if you saw Tavia Hunt, who was the wife of Clark Hunt. She responded to my tweet about Florio, how, he threatened that he's not sure if he could ever cover the NFL again if Tyreek Hill is allowed to play. And she responded to that tweet just kind of saying, well, Florio doesn't like the Chiefs. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right. Hey, thanks for tweeting me. And she had a few other tweets that, she definitely lashed out on Florio. And thank you to her. The wife of the owner of this franchise saying something to me means something.
Absolutely.
I'm not one of those people that cares, honestly, about what these national, I don't know what you call them, like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, these guys. Look, they're hated for a reason, and look, good for them. That's actually what their bosses like, because of their weird hot takes, which, to be honest, sometimes I think they do it for the sake of attention and to strike up a conversation, but there's a difference between, having, one of those crazy hot takes and then saying something like this.
Right. Absolutely.
Just two different things.
What do you think has to happen in order for the Chiefs to win? What is the biggest thing?
Well, the defense definitely. I know we focused a lot on the offense and we kind of answered that, but we haven't talked about the defense. I don't know if you remember the Colts Sunday Night Football game from earlier this year where the Chiefs lost that one. A big reason why the Colts won that football game, their offense did not go for the big home run play. They kind of had this small, slow and steady win the race kind of game plan where they dominated time of possession, and Patrick Mahomes was on the sideline forever in the second half. The Chiefs had possession for there was like a 20-minute span where the Chiefs only had the football for a minute and a half because they went 3 and out, and because of that, you had to punt the football back, and the Colts just basically did the same thing they did to open up the second half, just really run with the football. Don't let Mahomes stay on the sidelines for too long, because the more he's on the sidelines, a little bit of rust there. I don't know if you remember this game against the Broncos in week 2 of 2014. Just to kind of maybe help clarify that moment, that was when Jamal Charles suffered an injury. He missed one game, and the Chiefs had this 10-minute drive in the the third quarter, and Cairo Santos, who I think that was his first game as a Chief, he missed a field goal after a 10-minute drive. I don't know if you recall that or not, but CBS mentioned that throughout the end of the second quarter, halftime, and the start of the third quarter, Peyton Manning was on the sidelines for almost 40 minutes. He had not been on the field for 40 minutes in real time.
Wow.
So you don't want to let Mahomes be off the field for such a long period of time in real time. Let him be on the field for as much as possible. If he has, a 1-play or a 2-play touchdown drive, great. That's awesome. We'll take it. Of course, you always score when you can, but hopefully this defense doesn't allow those long drives, and this 49ers offense is capable of having those. That's going to be a big difference maker to me in this football game. If the 49ers are smart and, they've got a great offensive mind and coach in Kyle Shanahan, they should definitely try to emulate what the Colts did against the Chiefs earlier this year. That's going to be the key for them, for a 49ers perspective.
Let me ask you this. If it isn't Patrick Mahomes, who is your best bet to get the MVP?
You're saying outside of Patrick Mahomes?
Yes, outside of him. Which if the Chiefs win, we already know where it's going. We know it'll be him for sure. But if you had to give a long shot, who would you say?
I'd have to. This might be. I'm kind of inclined to say Travis Kelce, especially the game he had against the Texans, where it was only fitting that he really helped lead the surge in that comeback. But man, if I really want to pick a guy outside of Patrick, this might surprise people, but I'd go with Sammy Watkins, because
interesting.
People may not know this, but Sammy Watkins has been the best pass catcher for the Chiefs last postseason and this postseason, statistically speaking. He's really been a key part of this Kansas City offense. And I actually wrote about this on Arrowhead Addict, where, this is a guy that, his regular season, he's been inconsistent on the field. He's been inconsistent with his availability, but for whatever reason, in the month of January, maybe now February in this case, for the first time ever in the franchise's history, Sammy Watkins has been pretty significant. He's had a big hand in helping the Chiefs offense do its job. So if there's a guy outside of Mahomes that I would have to pick, I think Sammy Watkins would be that guy. He's been the top go-to guy for Mahomes in these 2 postseasons that we've had.
Yep. What's funny about that is, everybody knows it's mainly because of his huge contract that he's gotten scrutiny. But even Carrington Harrison had to give it up. And he's been a harsh critic of Sammy, but he had to even give it up after he had such a great game. Yeah,
and I think at the end of the day, it's like, why was Sammy Watkins so good? Is it because Tyreek Hill was double covered? Is it because the defense was focused in on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce? If so, hey, that's not a bad thing. You still give credit to everyone involved in that, including Sammy Watkins. That's just the beauty of this Chiefs offense. I remember when we had Eddie Kennison and Tony Gonzalez, a lot of people were analyzing that offense and said, look, those are, you got a great tight end and a solid wide receiver. You got to pick your poison. Well, now it's like, if you're a defensive coordinator, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles on, who do you want to double team? Do you want to double team Tyreek Hill? Do you want to double team Travis Kelce? Do you want to double team both? Okay. But if you do that, there are other speedsters that are going to just kill you and make you pay for that. So That's a big challenge for the 49ers defense, which is coached by Robert Saleh, who I'm a big fan of. I think this guy, I think you've got the best offensive coordinator in Bieniemy and the best defensive coordinator in Saleh in this game, which is fitting. It's the Super Bowl. So it's going to be really fun watching Bieniemy versus Saleh in this game, for sure.
All right, so let's get down to it. Prediction. Give me a score.
Oh man, based on everything we've said, it can either be low scoring or high scoring, or a blowout. You never know. But we're basically playing the safe card, right? That anything is possible. No.
Right. But let me ask you this: do you think the game they played last year? Now, let me tell you this: I was in Mexico when they played last year. Okay.
Yeah.
And when he had that crazy touchdown, I think anybody who's a Chiefs fan knows the one I'm talking about.
Yep.
That's when I knew he was special.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think that game factors in at all to this?
Surprisingly, you're the first person that I have heard even bring that up. I like that. I like the question. I do, but
because I'm so smart.
That's why I'm on this podcast. Do I think? Just to be clear, are you asking if last year's game will be a factor?
Meaning, do you think that goes into it at all? Meaning, I think Patrick and all them, they're two different teams at this point. Obviously, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you think that Patrick specifically will use that, and do you think he'll be able to use it to the advantage of the Chiefs?
I think both teams will. I think Shanahan will say, hey, look, we've gone up against Mahomes before, and some of you guys were here. Here's where we screwed up, and here's why we let him, go off on us. And I'm sure Andy Reid said, hey, look, you did all these things great against this 49ers defense. Some of the players are still there. But here's what we also did right. Here's what we can improve on. I think maybe you go through that a little bit. But again, as you said, both teams are completely different. It's almost been, 32 games since then, if you include playoff games. So
here's what I would say.
Yeah.
The 49ers defense is way better. But Patrick Mahomes is way better. That was his third game? Starting that year,
yeah,
so
game.
His fourth total. Yep. All right. Well, there's just so many more things I just keep wanting to ask you about. Sadly, Aaron Hernandez. Did you watch the Netflix?
I've only seen one episode, but that one episode could be like its own series itself.
It was pretty incredible, don't you think?
Yeah. No, it really is. Just things that. Just when you think you knew everything about that case, there's actually a lot more backstory. And really just the I don't want to give anything away. If you haven't seen it, I think people should. Just the backstory with his mother and him, the relationship.
I'm sure you heard him talking to his mom, right? Yelling at her.
That was dark.
Right?
Yeah, that was pretty dark. And, they were questioning his sexuality as well in high school, which I don't know if people knew this, but there was a former chief who was in the first episode, Ryan O'Callahan. He went on to play for the Patriots, so he was Aaron's teammate, and he came out as gay at some point during his time with the Patriots. So that's why he's in the docu-series. Yeah, that's a really incredible episode. I've only seen the first one. I definitely need to see the other two. I would suggest it if anyone hasn't seen it yet.
It's great. Here's what I would say, that I feel like they did a really good job of showing all sides of it except one thing. They showed the pros and cons of him. They showed how he had a hard time. And then they showed, they weren't painting him as a saint or anything like that. But what I mean is they showed the bad and good about him. They showed the bad about football and CTE. What I don't think they did very well was they didn't show the positives that football does. they did show the negatives. They did show the CTE, but they didn't show football. And it's much more than just the professionals that we see, right? I played football, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. It gives you discipline. Like, I do martial arts, right? It's the same sort of thing where it gives you that discipline, and I don't think football gets its credit for all the great that it does for a lot of people.
See, I'd be interested. I don't know if Roger Goodell is doing any media this week. He honestly needs to do a lot more, in my opinion, but neither here nor there. I'd be really curious to know if he does an interview with any of the media this week and if he has been asked about this series, because
I would love to hear his answer too. I would love to hear his answer.
That can really put kind of a dark cloud over the NFL, definitely over the Patriots franchise, knowing what they did after he got his contract, or excuse me, before he got his contract extension.
Like, the most incredible part of that was when they said no NFL player has ever played a full season after murdering 2 people. Did you hear that? Dude, that was insane. When I heard that, I had to do a double take.
I did too. I had to do a couple double takes on that first episode. Like I said, that was the only one I've seen, but I mean, first of all, it's really well produced. It's really well done.
No, that is a 100% fact. That is one thing that I took away from it. It was very well done. Very well done.
I'm really curious. I mean, obviously the Patriots are eliminated. I mean, normally they're still playing right now, but I guess from like a PR standpoint, it's kind of good that the Patriots are not playing, because I could see this, being a big PR mess for the Patriots, and how it could be a massive distraction for the players and just all the annoying questions they'd be asked and have to answer. I'm really curious Roger Goodell's response, and really the Patriots' response to all of this.
Anything you want to say to end us up here?
Go Chiefs. Be a good person, do the right thing. I don't know. Am I supposed to give like one of those? What's it called? Like a PSA? I feel like you're setting me up for a PSA. No, definitely.
Anything you want to shout out? Tell people where to go to find your stuff.
So yeah, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. You can just search my name, find me on there. I do host the Chiefs Zone podcast, but I am concluding that podcast soon, because I've done that podcast since I was 16 years old. And I've done it every year for the last 13 seasons, except for 2. And I was kind of wanting to like do a Super Bowl podcast, but then I decided earlier this month, I'm like, you know what? It may not happen. So I just need to make this the last year for it. But thankfully, the last game I'll ever recap will be a Super Bowl, which is cool. So mid-February, the podcast is ending, but I am going to be doing a new podcast, kind of similar to yours. When you listen to so much like Joe Rogan or Bert Kreischer podcast, you can't let go of podcasting. So I am going to be doing another podcast, but it's going to be not time sensitive, because with the Chiefs, you have to do it within a certain time frame each week. Whereas with my new podcast, I'll still discuss sports, but kind of like what you and I talked about, anything and everything, kind of like a Rogan podcast. So I'll be doing that, I have the name decided and all that, but I haven't announced anything. That will be coming out in May, and I'll definitely let people know where they can subscribe.
I cannot wait. I would love, and I mean love, to come do one with you.
Yeah, for sure, man. We'll definitely have to do that sometime.
It'll be fun, and we'll definitely have to get back together after the Chiefs win this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, well, I just want to, again, thank you for coming on. For me, Jeremy, Pinky and the Brain, and for Farzin, thank you, everybody who's been listening. We love you. And the next time you hear from me will be after the Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
Thanks for listening to the Pinky and the Brain Show. For more info, check out pinkyandthebrainshow.com.